Hey guys, welcome to Cinema Sunday. Today on this Cinema Sunday, we're talking about this guy right here, Guillermo Del Toro. Let's get started. Alright guys, like I said, welcome to Cinema Sunday. We are going to be talking about Guillermo Del Toro, this guy right here, not Benicio Del Toro, Guillermo Del Toro, who, by the way, is my number 5 on my favorite directors of all time lists. But before we jump into that, if we have never met, my name is Kim and I'm a creative freelancer with a passion for film and the written word. And if we have met, welcome back. And like I said, we're going to talk about Guillermo Del Toro. But first, I'm going to introduce you to a new segment I'm going to try to inject into many of my videos. And that is a segment I like to call 5 by 5. And what that is going to be is me giving you 5 pieces of trivia, 5 fun facts, 5 of something in 5 seconds. That is what we're going to do. So go ahead and put the 5-second clock right there and we'll get started. All right, so 5 by 5 Guillermo Del Toro edition. Here we go. Number 1. He was born in Guadalajara, Jalisco, Mexico. Number 2, he actually learned makeup and effects underneath the legendary Dick Smith. Number 3, he has a photographic memory. Number 4, his favorite movie of all time is 1935's Bride of Frankenstein. And number 5 is his very first Hollywood movie was Mimic. And by the way, that makes it onto my top 5 films. And that is the 5 by 5 Guillermo Del Toro edition. I have made it under the 5 seconds. Those are 5 fun facts that I think you should know about him. Now let's jump into the 5 films that I think you should see of his. All right, guys, we're gonna start with number 5. Number 5 is Mimic, 1997. Now, this film actually, Del Toro has stated that he feels is his weakest, and part of the reason he feels is his weakest is because there was a lot of interference from the producers that helped make this film. I think the reason he feels that way is because his vision didn't reach what he wanted it to reach. There was a lot of changes made and everything else. Mimic stars Mira Sorvino, and it's basically the story of the scientist who helps genetically engineer insects to fight roaches during an epidemical spread of this disease to combat it and save people. Fast forward a couple years and the insects that they had genetically engineered now have mutated and are hunting the only adversary they think they have, which is humanity. And so kind of a cool concept, kind of fun. I actually had never heard of Del Toro, obviously, because this was his first Hollywood film. I actually watched it because I love Mira Sorvino, and so, you know, she's done other great movies like Replacement Killers, which is amazing, and of course, you know, if you like fun comedies, Romeo and Michelle's High School Reunion, it was pretty darn entertaining as well. So, you know, another cool fact was this movie was actually only intended to be a 30-minute short. It was meant to be compiled with a couple others to do like an anthology kind of series, but this taking that movie from a 30-minute to a full length kind of happened, and that's how we got Mimic. I think it's a fun film. I know he doesn't think it's one of his best. I happen to think it's one of his top 5. And honestly, it was hard to choose, but this movie's fun. It's great. It was kind of a string of whole like bugs and insect movies and that kind of thing at that time. There was the other one, The Relic, which was kind of similar, but not really. I don't know. It all kind of had the same feel to it. But if you've never seen it, check it out. It's kind of fun. The graphics are pretty cool in it for the time. And I think in some ways, I think there was a message behind it that just got lost in translation. And it was like, if you tamper with nature, nature tends to tamper back. And sometimes them tampering back is not very good. And so I think the underlying message was kind of deep. You know, it was about, you know, is it right for us to genetically mutate things and create things? What does it happen with the balance of nature and everything? And also in this movie, he uses light and dark to really great effect. And I think it was evident what style he was going to have even as he moved forward. So check it out, 1997's Mimic. Number 4 is 2013's Pacific Rim. And this made it on the list because I like anime and I love giant robots kicking butt, and you add in giant sea monsters and I'm there. That's amazing. This one had Idris Elba, Charlie Hunnam. You know, like I said, basically sea monsters come from the sea down deep. Almost, the way I read it, it almost felt like there was like a rift in dimensions. They were coming up through that, but that could just be me. That's kind of how I read it. And then we have to fight back. Humanity has to fight back with giant robots that kick butt. Awesome. I love anime, and so this is right up my alley. I love things like big Ringo and Gundam and Robotech. These are all like, this is all like a classic concept in anime. So that was why I went to see it, as well as, I mean, Del Toro. The graphics were awesome. And so a couple, you know, the kaiju, which by the way means strange beast in Japanese, which I think is pretty cool. The visual effects in this were amazing. Now, I will tell you that this is the first film that Del Toro actually shot with digital cameras. So not only was he doing this huge epic live action anime movie, he was actually also working with gear that he had never worked with before. So, and changing gear, if you're a filmmaker, you know, changing gear, it changes the way you shoot sometimes. And I think, honestly, this is a fun movie. It's not a deep movie. It's not a poignant movie. It's just a fun action film with a lot of heart and big robots. Big robots. What? And the sequel, if it's not in the movie theaters yet, it should be soon. I'm super stoked to see that. That'll have a John Boyega in it from Star Wars, and I'm super stoked. So yeah, number 4, Pacific Rim. If you haven't seen it, check it out, especially if you're planning on going to see the sequel. Check it out before you see this one. All right, and so number 3 is 2004's Hellboy. This movie, once again, Del Toro the name really hadn't attached itself to me. I saw this film because I was a huge fan of the comic book, and so I was like, okay, and at that time it was like hit or miss. Whenever they did a live action comic book movie, you know, it's not like now where like you do it and you expect it to hit big. Like, no, these movies were good, but it was always a risk to go see one. So I went and saw it. It's great. Ron Perlman, Selma Blair, Doug Jones. Amazing. Demon is saved from the Nazis during World War II and raised to fight for justice and freedom and, you know, whatever ensues. It's a really great movie. It's fun. If you like witty, sarcastic, kind of like very dry humor, it's there. And the visual effects for the time were amazing. And of course, there's an underlying, you know, H.P. Lovecraft theme because the demons were kind of constructed from the concept of the Cthulhu mythos. So the elder gods, they were modeled after them. So that's super cool. And, you know, that's really why I liked it. It was once again kind of like a fun action. Nothing like, there was some heartwarming moments, but it wasn't meant to be super impactful and impact the world. It's just a good movie, but well directed, light and dark. Clearly, Del Toro has this really unique relationship with his cinematographers, and it's on every film. At least that's how I feel. It's almost like they become one, and so amazing. Check it out. So that leads me to number 2, which if you had talked to me just a month and a half ago, would have actually been number 1. But now, his latest film, which we'll talk about in a second, kind of bumped it out of the way. So number 2 is Pan's Labyrinth. And Pan's Labyrinth is 2006. It's amazing. You know, Ivana Baquero, I hope I pronounced that right, and Ariadne Gil. Kind of story is this girl in Spain, 1944. She has a horrible stepfather and she's trying to escape him, and she finds herself embroiled in this dark fantasy realm and yada, yada, yada. Amazing. Del Toro has a great grasp on magical realism, and if you don't know what magical realism is, I'll go ahead and link up in the card to, I actually did something a couple weeks ago on Magical, Mystical, Mythical Monday about magical realism, so I'll go ahead and link in that so that you guys can have an idea of what I mean when I say magical realism. He fought the producers for this film, which I think tells you the type of person he is, the type of creative he is. He fought the producers so that this film could be filmed in Spanish and not in English. He wanted it to be real and authentic. Although it meant that there would be subtitles, it didn't affect the movie any. It still did wonderful. It's amazing. And on top of that, in order to get all this stuff done, he forgo any salary on this film. It was a passion project for him. He wanted to get it made. And so that also tells you the type of creative is, and that is amazing. So if you have never seen Pan's Labyrinth, I highly suggest it be one of the first 2 that you see of his, and then you can go watch the others, but one of the first 2 definitely has to be Pan's Labyrinth. And the other one of those 2 has to be his newest film, 2017, The Shape of Water. Amazing. This film stars Sally Hawkins, Doug Jones, Octavia Spencer, Richard Jenkins. The whole cast is amazing. And actually it's been doing really well in the awards arena. So, and I'm not surprised because it's such a poignantly heartfelt film that I just can't say enough about it. So a mute woman works in a military science lab, finds herself in an isolated area, and sees the creature that they have just captured that they're torturing and wanting to use to develop weapons. They form a friendship, and eventually the friendship turns into more, and it becomes this whole, like, there's a spy storyline. It's just amazing. But the core crux is the two of them are lonely. You know, I'm not going to ruin anything if you haven't seen the film. I can't say do it enough. I did do a random review, and I'll link that in the card as well, so that you can pop over and see my pros and cons list. This film was actually, Del Toro wanted to film this film in black and white originally, and I get the concept. I think it would have been very artsy, but I think it would have lost something in the translation. And I get the concept. It was done in the 50s, so he wanted to kind of keep that motif going. I think it would have affected the film, and I don't know if it would have not made it as poignant, but it definitely would have changed the visual idea of what was happening. And then on top of that, you know, another thing is he actually chose to direct this film over the Pacific Rim sequel. He'd been working on this film since the original Pacific Rim, and really he chose it because it was his creative heart. And so he actually said, no, you know what, I'm not going to do that sequel. I know it's going to be a blockbuster. I know it's going to be amazing, but I'd rather do this like more heartwarming film. This is much more where my heart lies. And honestly, Mr. Del Toro, I think you made the right decision, because Shape of Water was outstanding. Outstanding. The visual effects were good. The story was good. The acting was fantastic. I can't say enough about Sally Hawkins and the way she portrayed this character. Absolutely amazing. Like I said, check out my random review. You'll hear me gush even more about it. And guys, that's my top 5 Del Toro films. I hope you enjoyed the new format. I hope you learned a lot about Del Toro. I hope you run out and you check out his films. And if you like the video, go ahead and give me a thumbs up. If you're digging on Cinema Sunday, go ahead and hit that subscribe button. And until next time, creatives, safe journeys.